What's up, peeps? So this week I'm back talking about Bleach, but this time I'm tackling my favorite moments throughout the series. So stay tuned. It's going to be a list of all things that I enjoyed from the show or the manga. So let's jump into it. All right, so we're starting off strong with Ichigo versus Ukiura, their final fight, where he becomes the Vastalorde. And I think for me, when I first watched this, I was trying to figure out, like, is he, like, dead again? Or am I going to have to deal with mourning his death, or is he gonna go off half-cocked and like hurt somebody? And it's a little bit of both, actually. So it becomes a clash of the titans. This is a form of Ichigo's that we had not seen before, and again, Orihime is the catalyst for this, where she is like, please don't die. Please, help us, Ichigo, do something. And at this point, he's got a hole in his chest. That's Ukiura's like favorite thing. And, you wonder if it's like a statement he's trying to make or whatever, but he leaves him for dead. And that doesn't really work out, because you hear him kind of, his heart beating. You hear him talking to himself about, Orihime's crying, get up, protect her at all costs. So he's back and ready to brawl. But I think like right away, they realize that there's no talking to him. There's no talking him down. And he really takes out Ukiura. There is a difference in their powers. He basically tears the boy apart in front of both Ishida's and Orihime's eyes. So there is that. But because he's not really responding to anybody, it's like, is anybody safe with him? Well, maybe just Orihime, right? Because she's the one that called on him. But I mean, he did stab Ishida. So it's like, somebody do something, calm him down. The mask was able to be broken, and he comes back to himself. And when he looks over at Orihime, he's like startled, like, because he can't remember what happened. He doesn't remember turning Ukiura into mincemeat. He definitely doesn't remember stabbing Ishida. But it was definitely one of my favorites, because anything you thought Ichigo was capable of, this took it up to the next level. So I really, really enjoyed that. Number 2 is definitely going to be Ichigo's first Bankai, or, Ichigo versus Byakuya. I watched this scene a lot. It's epic. It's epic in the manga. It's epic in the anime. I will say this, I'm kind of bummed because I have omnibuses, but there was a color spread that was done when he went Bankai, and I don't have that. And listen, y'all have got to get on these omnibuses and start getting color spreads in them, because 2 thumbs down. But anyway, this is when he infiltrates the Soul Society. He's trying to rescue Rukia. He is going to have to battle Byakuya. They were on a crash course to battle each other because Byakuya and Renji were the ones that came to take Rukia back for her sentencing. And, you know, her friend and her brother just kind of stand around. They like know she's going to be executed and they're not really doing much, you know? Um, so at this point, he's already defeated Renji. And we knew that he was going to have to fight Byakuya, but he was going to have to go through some refining during his fights with other people. Um, and Yoruichi kind of stops Byakuya from killing him. Um, like we'll be back in 3 days, and only in anime could you tell somebody, "Hey, hold on, I'm gonna go train harder, and I'll be back." And they kind of just let that happen. But he's trained for 3 days, just like Kisuke, to achieve Bankai. Most Soul Reapers, it takes 100 some odd years to get there, but we don't have that kind of time. Okay? So, and for me, I was like, what kind of training is going to take place in 3 days that is going to prepare you for Byakuya and his Bankai, Zenbon Zakura? But I'll tell you what, I was not in the least disappointed. Um, Ichigo at that time was ready for anything. So he shows up, they go at it, and he basically says, I got a little thing to show you. Bankai. This is when we're introduced to Tensei Zangetsu for the first time. Um, the color spread is epic. The way it's animated is even epic. But the battle from that point kind of rages on, and I think that Ichigo kind of unsettles Byakuya with his speed. At one point, he puts Zangetsu to Byakuya's throat, which is not something that happens to him a lot. He's very cool, calm, and collected in most things. He knows he's more powerful than most people, so this is got to be a first for Byakuya in a long time, you know. So it was fantastic, but you know he's running circles around um, around Byakuya's powers, and I mean he's getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And if you think about it, I don't think Byakuya has encountered anybody who's faster than him at this point. Um, but there's something about Ichigo's Bankai that makes him a cocky bastard that I very much enjoy. Um, and he's talking shit, and you can see like Byakuya's feathers are really ruffled. But in the end, when Byakuya unleashes the Bankai, Ichigo is in real trouble. He gets stabbed in the foot. He's getting ready to be executed. And that's when Ichigo's inner hollow steps out. Scares the shit out of Byakuya. Scares the shit out of me. And he basically has to fight his inner hollow for control. And Byakuya is like, yo, I don't know what the fuck you got going on, but I am going on about my business. You hear? So, yeah, that's what happened. So, on to the next one. The next one is definitely Kisuke's backstory. I think we find out within the first couple of episodes of Kisuke training Ichigo that he used to be a Soul Reaper. We know that, you know. But one of the things that is profound in writing an anime or coming up with a story for an anime is that there is a backstory that needs to be told, but it's not going to be told right away. Um, One of the things that comes to mind is Sanji from One Piece, his backstory being told many episodes later. And I kind of got the same vibe when we finally get to Kisuke's backstory because I had wondered where this man with this convenience store that specializes in Soul Reaper items, that knew things about Soul Reapers, where did this man come from? Obviously, the Soul Society. But why is he there? Why is he living there? Why is he making a living there? Why is he not in the Soul Society? Why is he not traveling back and forth? I need answers. And the big picture centers around Aizen. We, at this point, Aizen is revealed to be the bad guy. He first makes it seem like he was murdered, and then it's revealed that he's done all of these things. The calamity that's going on in the Soul Society while Ichigo is there, trying to rescue Rukia, he had a hand in. So, what does that have to do with Kisuke? Well, there is a discussion that goes on online, um, with all of my favorite people, um, about which one of them is smarter, Aizen or Kisuke. And if you read the manga and if you watch the anime, then you know that Aizen has said, there's only one person in the Soul Society that's smarter than me. Which makes what you find out has happened to Kisuke, it makes it make sense. So many moons ago, because Kisuke's been exiled from the Soul Society for about 100 years. He's mysterious and deceptively intelligent, and all of the things that make you wonder whether or not he's actually on your side. But many moons ago, he was promoted to captain. Um, he was the leader of the 12th Division. He transforms it into research and development. He's met with hostility because the people that were in the 12th Division, they have some loyalty toward the former captain. And they basically don't like change, which I could say I don't know anything about, but I'd be lying. So he takes over. He's also responsible for, removing Mayuri from the maggot's nest. Um, and after all of this unfolds with Kisuke, it's essential to know that because Mayuri is currently the captain of the 12th Division once Kisuke leaves. Um, it's set in motion years earlier, because what's happening is there's a series of strange disappearances that's going on in the Soul Society. They don't know what's happening. And then a lot of people are being attacked. And as Kisuke investigates, he realizes that someone is experimenting on souls in the Soul Society, um, and trying to merge Soul Reapers with Hollows, which is a process called hollification. It's illegal, it's unethical, it's all of the things, you know what I mean? So there's that. But um, there are other captains and lieutenants with Shinji, Kensei, and Hiyori, becoming victims. And the sad thing is, this holification process cannot be reversed, period. Um, it's revealed that it's Aizen behind this. So this was 100 years ago, before any of these other people end up in the Soul Society and realize that Aizen can't be trusted. So, after doing his own testing, he realizes that this is what's going on. He tries to figure out a plan to get rid of Aizen, but Aizen already has the ball set in motion. Um, he basically blames Kisuke, and I think that Kisuke's personality kind of preceded him. There were a lot of people that didn't like him, and I think it was easier for them to believe that he was doing this thing than it was to not believe Aizen, which sucks. So he's tried and convicted. He doesn't have the opportunity to explain or defend himself or anything. They just, I'm like, we're gonna strip him of his Soul Reaper powers. And I think the initial plan was to kill him and those who were hollowified. So like him and like all of those who had been tested on. Kisuke is against this. He basically flees, and Yoruichi helps him flee, and they take the victims with him. But I think that because they escaped, a lot of the Soul Society did not want to chase after them in the real world, so they just basically were like, just stay here and never come back. And I guess they kind of agreed to that, and I'm like, man, all right, cool. So that happens. And, you know, Kisuke is able to stabilize the hollowified victims. They're able to kind of live in the human world, but again, he's not able to undo the process. Um, so what he does is open up this shop, and he lives in the real world and has lived in the real world for 100 years. So he is among some of the first people to be betrayed by Aizen. And the Soul Society doesn't even see what's coming. So the betrayal from Aizen has been deep. You know, what we're seeing that Ichigo is dealing with had been in the cards for the past 100, 120 years. And nobody listened to Kisuke or his warnings or even asked him about what was going on. And by the time it was time to listen to him, um, the cards were already in place. Things were already in shambles. And listen, Kisuke is better than me because if it was left up to me to deal with people or save people from the thing I tried to warn them about, and they tried to blame me for it, um, they didn't care. They didn't want the information. Don't call me now that this man who you cling to is exactly who I tried to warn you he was, and now he's stabbing folks in the back and doing all kind of stuff. No, thank you. But of course, he does help them. He does train Ichigo, and he does, you know, a lot from the human world to help out the Soul Society. And I'm like, bleh, why? But like I said, he's better than me. So there's that. The next one is the fact that the Hollified group, the Vizords, they help Ichigo train. Um, of course, there's a group of people that are dealing with an inner hollow, like Ichigo is, and it can't be helped by Kisuke because you actually have to deal with people who are going through the same things that you're going through. So um, this moment kind of made me laugh because I think that people were they weren't taking Ichigo seriously, you know? Um, and it wasn't until it was too late that they were like, oh man, his hollow is a little different. You know what I mean? But anyway, they, this group, they're the Soul Reapers that have obtained hollow powers because they were hollowified by Aizen. The Vizords are, you know, a result of what happens when a hollow enters the soul of a Soul Reaper and merges with their Zanpakuto, you know? So the exact thing that Ichigo has going on. Um, but you find out later that Ichigo got that way, kind of a different way. Um, they, like Kisuke, were deemed as traitors and meant to be destroyed. But when it comes to training Ichigo, they, you know, prove to be hella helpful. Like at one point, they're trying to teach Ichigo to like, you're supposed to be able to pull your hollow powers out whenever you're ready. You have to gain this hollow mask. You have to train with it on. And, you know, Ichigo first notices they might be like him when Shinji arrives in town and he helps take down a hollow. Shinji, for his part, is trying to convince Ichigo to join up with their group. He says being in close quarters is going to help us and control your hollow and keep it from taking over. Um, control your inner thoughts and things like that. And Ichigo is starting to be freaked out anyway because he's starting to hear his inner hollow in his mind. And as a teenager, you don't want to be any more different than you have to be. And this is another thing that is thwarting his want to be like a normal boy. When he starts training with them, it's Hiyori who tries to get him to go Bankai, which he's reluctant to do because he doesn't want to lose control. He realizes that they have like some real control over their hollows, and if I let this thing loose, it could get ugly. He feels like his inner hollow is in a constant state of turmoil. But what have you. But poor Hiyori, she's got a big mouth. And this was one of my favorite things because I couldn't wait to see her get taken care of because she was always talking shit. So she's trying to go to Ichigo into letting the mask out and doing your own thing and whatever. So she like begins trying to attack him and different things. And once the darkness starts seeping in, like in the beginning, before he had control over it, you could see the black like taking over in his eyes, and then the hollow emerge and like all hell break loose. So in this case, he like grabs Hiyori by the throat. He like breaks her mask. He's damn near choking her to death. And I gotta tell you, the darkness seeping into the eyes is probably one of the best touches I've seen in a while. So there's that. But they're on him like white on rice. They get the mask off him. I mean, they're all over him. They were ready. But Hiyori is kind of freaked out. They wrestle his ass to the ground. But Hiyori almost pissed herself because she was not prepared for the kind of hollow that Ichigo had in store for her. It's Shinji and the rest of the Vizords that basically tell Ichigo, like, you're not going to be able to control this hollow with just your willpower alone. You're going to have to go into your inner sanctum and have it out with your hollow and let him know who's boss. Because if not, you're always going to be worried about this guy taking over and it being the worst thing ever, So there's that. But, one of the best scenes that I've seen, mostly because I enjoy when people who are talking shit gets what's coming to them. This next one was an awesome plot twist, but also freaking annoying to me, So this next one is Ikkaku's Bankai. Ikkaku and the rest of the 11th Division really love Captain Zaraki, and they know that they all enjoy it. They have a bloodlust for fighting. They all enjoy that, and it's how they bond. It's what they enjoy, right? And they all want to stay together. But one of the things that you learn is that if you're a person who knows Bankai, you're immediately moved to being a lieutenant or a captain of another squad or something like that. So, Ikkaku really considers fighting fun, and sometimes he takes risks to draw the fight out longer so that he can enjoy it more. He really enjoyed his fight with Ichigo as they, break into the Soul Society, so it's a big deal. But Renji has figured it out, and Renji is like, look, you need to tell people that you can do Bankai. And Ikkaku is basically like, yeah, no, I'm not going to tell anybody that. I plan to die, under Captain Zaraki, and I have no plans to, pass or show up Zaraki. And it's important to know that Kenpachi Zaraki at this point did not have a bad guy, but nobody could beat him anyway. So like, whatever. Um, but anyway, it's not until Grimjow leads an attack on the world of the living, and he's got some subordinates, and Enkaku is fighting the subordinate who is trying to goad him into using more power. I know you have more power. I know you could release your Zanpakuto, you know. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, are you going to reveal this or what? Um, it's during that fight that, you know, Ikaku is like, man, I really am going to have to activate this Bankai and show this man what for. Um, he pulls it out. It's fucking huge. The way it's animated is fucking fantastic. It even looks great in the manga. And again, I'm gonna say I really wanted the omnibuses because I really had a certain amount of space that I could use. But if you're gonna do it, definitely get the box sets because it's probably even better. But it's fantastic, and he's really only got time for one attack, and they both like blow each other up. And thank goodness Ikaku survived. But he's damn near blown to pieces. But the his opponent lost his arm and side of his abdomen, and it's worth it. But I think later on, when in the Thousand Year Blood War, when the Quinties invade the Soul Society, he's still doing this thing where he tries to pretend like he doesn't have Bankai. And, he's kind of scolded because it's like, we know this about you, and you could have done something to help the Soul Society, and you didn't. You just decided to do this, which was really a bonehead move. So it's great, but also stupid. There's that. Another one of my favorites is Aizen versus Ichigo. I've been told by many people that it was anticlimactic, but at that point, you know, it really showed Ichigo as being badass. There's no fear. He's cool, calm, and collected. He's not anxious. He has a plan. He knows what he's going to do. I had just wished that it was going to be a bit longer. Um, he's there in Katakura Town, and he's, protecting his friends. This is exactly how I would have wanted it for him, as a person who thrives on protecting friends and family. But anyway, Aizen has killed Gin. Um, you know, he shows up just in time to stop Aizen from hunting down all of his friends from high school. Um, he shows up with his dad. He's taller. He has longer hair because he spent time training. And I have to say, I definitely approve of the long hair. You know, poor Aizen has been terrorizing our boy since day one. So it was finally interesting to see him be dealt a loss. You know, he has no clue where the strength is coming from. At one point, um, Aizen was fighting both Ishin and Urahara, and also Yoruichi. So it was good to see. Oh, Ichigo finally showed up, and we need him. Um, but my personal favorite is the face palm heard around the world. You grab somebody by the face, they finna get their ass kicked for real. I enjoy that. So yeah, the last time these two met on a battlefield, Ichigo was shook. You know, but that's not what you see here. And it's also even better because, Aizen is swinging his sword. Ichigo catches the sword. It's a nod to when Aizen stopped the music that Ichigo was gonna do something, but then he couldn't. He stopped it with Aizen stopped it with a finger. Um, it was good to see Ichigo return the favor, but Aizen still thinks he has the upper hand here. He's like, I don't know what you've done to yourself, but it's not enough to beat me, you know? Um, and it's almost as like Aizen doesn't actually know what's happening, so he's just kind of talking shit. But Ichigo is finally tired of the games, and he activates the final Getsuga Tensho. And I mean, Aizen is just kind of standing there, like, really surprised. Um, there's no way that any such thing should be possible for a human. Which at this point, many people have told Ichigo, like, you shouldn't be able to do this. You're just a human. You're not even one of us. Um, he takes, the final shot. I think we're told that once he does this, he's going to lose his Soul Reaper powers. So, so a lot of people also said that once this happened, Bleach should not have gone on, which I also disagree with, but that's a story for another time. Um, we realize that right away, once he uses this final technique, that his powers are going away, and it's sad because Aizen doesn't die, but he is sealed away. His Zanpakuto disintegrates. He, is sealed away by the spell that Kisuke hid within his body. Because Kisuke always has to have the upper hand. And again, if there was ever any debate as to which one of them is smarter, well, Um, I do have a soft spot for Kisuke, but he's just as scary. And I have to say, I'm super proud of Ichigo doing the thing, even though he knew what the consequences were going to be. So, hot shit. I was so glad that this next one was animated so well. It's Yamamoto's Last Stand. So, in the Thousand Year Blood War, when the Quincy's infiltrate the Soul Society, they're coming to kill everything and everyone. And it's Yamamoto that we get to see in his element. It was great to see, even though we know it doesn't really work out in the end. We got to see Yamamoto set the rules, follow the rules and the regulations of the Soul Society, and expect that same level from others. He doesn't tolerate insubordination or anything like that. And so it was fun for me to see him get out and battle and do what needs to be done. Um, him use his Bankai, that shit was badass. Like, and you knew it had to do with flames, but those flames burn hot because as they're fighting, Toshiro says, whose Bankai is made up of ice, he's like, man, you know, Captain basically is doing his thing because there's no water in the atmosphere for me to use at all. So he's taking all of the water from me, so I can't use my Bankai even if I wanted to, right? You do realize, though, that this is a 1,000-year war. So this isn't the first time that, Yamamoto has met the leader of the Quincy's. And Mayuri points out, like, we wouldn't even be here if you had killed that man 1,000 years ago, like you were supposed to. Um, anyway, it became clear to me why he doesn't use his Bankai all that often. But Yamamoto looks like he's in rare form. Like he's been fighting for years, that he hasn't taken a break. He's given the guy a run for his money. The problem is the person that he's fighting is not who we think it is. He's been fooled by an imposter, which the Quincy's are full of people who can do all kind of things, which is sad. Even with the Walking Dead that Yamamoto activates, it doesn't really do much because again, like I said, he's fighting an imposter. The real leader of the Quincy's is down in Central 46, where they hold your worst criminals, i.e., Aizen, trying to convince Aizen to join the side of the Quincy's and kill off everything that has to do with the Soul Society. Which, if I was the leader of the Quincy's, it makes sense. Here's a guy that tried to kill everything in the Soul Society, and so maybe he'll be open to being on my side. But anyway, he returns to the fight at the last second and cuts Yamamoto damn near in half. And it was ridiculous in the manga, and it's even more ridiculous watching it animated. They got it right. I'm glad about that. But to me, it was a devastating blow. Devastating. Um, and I know when you title something a blood war that people have to die, but I was not prepared for that, and I probably should have been. And I think it really shook me because I was wondering, like, what do the Soul Reapers do now? This was your best shot, you know? And so, like, what is Ichigo supposed to come in and do now? He's, what, 16, 17, and maybe even 18? You had two people who've been beefing for 1,000 years, and now I have to come in and finish what Yamamoto couldn't have done. So that was crazy to me. The next one is definitely a plot twist of all plot twists. Um, Finding out that we were led to believe that Zangetsu is the old man in Ichigo's inner sanctum, and you find out that that's not Zangetsu at all. Um, so this shows up in the Thousand Years Blood War when Ichigo's Zanpakuto is destroyed. Um, I was heartbroken that Tensa Zangetsu is broken. And you can see the pain in his face both on the manga page and in the anime when you watch it. I'm like, goodness gracious, did not see that coming. Um, but they send him to the King's Palace, him and Renji, travel to the Soul King Palace. Um, they're healed in the hot springs, and then they head over to Namaya's place, and he's the keeper of all things in Pacto, and he has them dive down in this pit to fight these Asauchi. And these are basically just nameless Zanpakuto that all lower class Soul Reapers wield. So these have no name, they have no personality, there's no souls within them, nothing. So these are given to those who are still training to be Soul Reapers. So they're supposed to go down in this pit, Ichigo and Renji, and fight these off and get one to surrender so that you can have your sword reforged. Um, Renji goes down, he gets it done. 3 days later, Ichigo is still there trying to get one of these to decide to surrender to him. And it's not happening. He can't figure out why. But after 3 days, he's sent back to the human world, um, where he has to have a discussion with his father. Um, and one of the downsides that I realize was really an issue with me the more that I go back and watch the show is that Ichigo constantly is the last person to know things about his own life. Everybody that he encounters knows something about his parents or his life or, who he really is. And he's the last person to know, you know. I'll touch more on that later. But his father basically tells him, like, yeah, your mother was a Quincy. She and I weren't supposed to fall in love and get married, but we did. And this is how she really died. Alluding to the fact that this guy years ago came back into power and killed off a lot of Quincy's. in order for him to come back into power, he had to use the life force of different Quincy's, which included, you know, Ichigo's mother. This is a story that he's never heard. And it highlights the fact that when he first meets the leader of the Quincy's, when he comes back to the Soul Society, he talks about how you don't even know who you are. You don't even know who I am. They never told you. And I can't imagine how frustrating it is to be, looked upon as somebody who's supposed to help a group of people who know things about you and refuse to tell it to you. So they kind of send you into fighting blind. And really, still, his father tells him, because you need to have an understanding of who you are, because you're not going to get a news on Pacto without knowing this vital piece of information that I had all this time to tell you that I didn't tell you. You know, trust me, I like his father, but I was like, dude, you could have said this sooner. You know, um, but what we find out is the old man who was claiming to be Zangetsu is actually Ichigo's Quincy power. And he heavily resembles the leader of the Quincy's from 1,000 years ago. And I remember like seeing him show up on screen and even on the page and then being like, that looks like Zangetsu. That's weird. That's suspicious. You know, um, Ichigo returns to his inner world and he demands answers from the old man who we used to think was Zangetsu. Um, and the old man reveals that Hollow Ichigo is and has always been his true Zanpakuto and has always been Zangetsu, um, which Ichigo has been suppressing. And there was a lot of talk online about whether or not this was a plot twist or this was a plot hole. What is it? But I've gone back through many episodes, many pages in the manga, and anytime Ichigo showed up in his inner world, and Hollow Ichigo was there, or White Ichigo was there, whatever you want to call him, and he asked, "Where is Zangetsu?" He's talking about the old man, but Hollow Ichigo would always answer, "What do you mean? I am Zangetsu." And it was right there. And we all skipped over it, myself included. So, you know, what have you. We're told over and over again, we didn't listen. That happens sometimes. But in the end, your boy gets two new blades. One that represents both his Quincy powers and the real Zangetsu. So I enjoy that. Okay? Um, it was a meaningful episode, him coming to terms with everything that he is. Um, and he needs that, you know. I needed that. I need to watch him go through that, you know. Next moment that stands out to me is definitely the reveal of the first Kenpachi. Um, that was something that right away people were talking about online to see animated. Because I remember reading it and being like, what the hell? You know? Um, this has got to be up there with one of the biggest plot twists for me. It's up there with the betrayal of Kisuke by Aizen. And, we knew that Kenpachi wasn't a name. We knew it was a title. But the fact that there was another Kenpachi that's alive and well, that never happens. Because I believe Zaraki gets to be captain because he killed the captain from before. So I'm like, how is there more than one Kenpachi? But whatever. So anyway, and the fact that it's Onohana, it's weird, especially since she is the leader of the fourth division. They deal with healing and medical and all of these things, and she's seen as one of the best healers in the Soul Society. It was so weird to see her be as gentle and warm as she is and soft spoken and polite, and then reveal that she's a cold blooded killer, okay, and always has been. Yamamoto sought her out because she was apparently a pretty diabolical criminal in the Soul Society. Um, he asked her to join him and become one of the founding members of the Gote 13. And like I get that Soul Society is pretty old and the members of the Gote 13 are pretty old. But a founding member, you could knock me down with a feather. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Um, she laid the foundations to what we know as the 11th Division, which is a big deal because Zaraki comes by later and he becomes the captain of the 11th Division. The manga basically shows that Onohana went on a mission. She had some warriors that she had to eliminate, and she had lost interest in fighting as a whole. She's just kind of wandering from place to place, and she stumbles across this young boy, which we know is Zaraki. Um, and he like jumps out and attacks her on sight. Like from a young age, he's about that life. Okay. And he was able to injure her in a way that nobody else could, you know. Um, she manages to beat him down, but, she draws the conclusion that at some point he's going to defeat her. He's much stronger than she is. And when the Quincy's come and infiltrate the Soul Society, and now that Yamamoto is dead, they are trying to figure out what is the best approach to give us a fighting chance. Um, you know, Shunsui takes over being the captain commander, and he makes the decision that these two are going to do a deadly battle. Um, Zaraki is meant to become more powerful. He's going to do so after he kills Onohana, and you know, I've reread the manga twice, and I think there were small clues there, but I don't think I would have ever seen this coming. Although I did want to know why Onohana had to be killed, because I think that in a blood war, you've just lost your most valuable piece in Yamamoto, um, who could have done something. I'm trying to figure out why you would have them fight to the death and only one of them come out alive. Like, you need as many bodies as possible for this. You know what I mean? So it just didn't make any sense to me. So there's that. But still a great scene. It was still animated really well. It also looks great in the manga. So I'm just really proud of the animation work that's happening with the Thousand Year Blood War. I'm like, these people are doing a great job. I really love it. Good times. And finally, it's going to be Grimmjow versus Ichigo, the final fight in Hueco Mundo. It is by far my favorite fight, um, because it's laden with a lot of emotional turmoil by both Ichigo and Orihime. And that's a moment that I wanted. Um, the rivalry that exists between Ichigo and Grimmjow is the best. I don't care what nobody say. It's the best. Um, Prior to this battle, though, Ichigo keeps being bested by Grimmjow. And so there's a lot that goes into the battle. Um, Orihime is kidnapped by Okiura. She's given 24 hours to say goodbye to one person and one person only. Obviously, she chooses Ichigo. Um, and when she disappears, it's Ichigo that realizes that she's was in my room, but she's missing. Um, she's labeled a traitor by the Soul Society, and he's like, you know what, fuck y'all, I'm going to get her. You know what I mean? You're not going to tell me anything about Orihime. But his time in Hueco Mundo is up and down because he had to deal with Ukiura trying to kill him twice, by the way, punching a hole in his chest and all of that. Grimmjow shows up, breaks Orihime out of her prison, and brings her to Ichigo, which is pretty much a dead body, by the way. And it's like, listen, you need to heal him so I can fight him and beat him up some more. And poor Orihime, she's like, why do y'all keep making me heal this man whom I love so that y'all can keep beating him up? Like, what kind of nonsense is that? So she takes a stand against Grimjow and she's like, I'm not gonna heal him so that you can continue kicking his ass. It's not happening. But at that point, she already had him in like the healing bubble or whatever. And he was healed enough because he reached out of the bubble and is like, listen, let go of her. Don't touch her. Unhand her. All of that. Inner me screamed, I love that. I live for that. So Ichigo is resolved to fight Grimjow. He basically tells her, heal me and heal him. Well, Grimjow is who he is, so he's basically like, I don't need no help. Okay, well, when I kick your ass, I don't want to hear no noise. You know what I mean? So that was a big deal. And when the battle finally starts, I mean, they're causing explosion after explosion after explosion. And, Grimjow is laughing maniacally. The only person who has a better laugh than Grimjow during this fight is Mark Hamill's Joker. But he's like, Grimjow is kind of close. So, and by the way, he's by far my favorite Espada. I believe he's everybody's favorite Espada, but, what do you want? Throughout the fight, though, what Grimjow is wanting Ichigo to do is to put on his hollow mask and lean into his hollow power because he wants to defeat Ichigo at his full power. He's doing everything in his power to go to Ichigo and to try and on this mask, and Ichigo is very reluctant to do so for a number of reasons. He's trying to save up his power. Like, I have enough people that I need to run into. I don't want to use up all my hollow strength on you. Secondly, Orihime has never seen it. And she's never seen it because back in the first couple of episodes, in the first couple of chapters of the manga, she is being attacked by a hollow, which we realize is her brother, right? And he wears this hollow mask. It's very kind of creepy and sad. And Ichigo is really reluctant to put on the hollow mask in front of her because he doesn't want to freak her out, so there's that. But Grimjow won't be deterred because he implements the Gran Racero. He knows that he's being provoked, but the problem is the attack gets past him and is headed to Nell and Orihime, who he now has to save. The hollow mask allows him to speed up and block the ray from destroying them or whatever. And he decides that he's going to keep his back to them because that's the best way to make sure Orihime doesn't see the hollow mask on him, right? I don't know how I would react if somebody attacked me wearing a mask and then one of my friends decided to wear the same type of mask. I'd be freaked out. So I get it. It's an interesting thing for him to be thinking about during a fight, though, but that's just me. She doesn't really know what to expect here because he doesn't really care for his inner hollow, and therefore he hasn't really shared it with his friends, what's going on with him, with his friends. So she doesn't know what's happening or why it's happening to him when, communication is key, but they're 15, so, what do you want? His solution is to just keep his back to her and tell her, listen, you need to put up your shield and don't worry, I'm going to protect you. And then he goes on about his business, right? So now that Ichigo's hollow powers have been revealed, now Grimjow can release his own powers. And in this fight, Grimjow is doing everything that he can. He releases Pantera. It's fantastic. He compliments Ichigo on his hollow mask lasting longer. Because I believe in the last fight, he put it on, but then it immediately crumbled. So he's like, you keep that thing on because the battle will be boring if you let this crack, if you let this mask fall. So, you know, and I think the thing that makes it great for me is the witty back and forth, the shit talking that goes back and forth between the two. And Grimjow even says at one point, like, I'm so sick of having to battle you because you think you're better than everybody. You think that you're actually going to win based on nothing. But shit definitely hits the fan because, in one of the attacks, Grimjow, dodges Ichigo's attack and then launches 5 missiles at him, which go past Ichigo. He dodges them easily, but he realizes that they're on the way to Orihime again. So he has to put himself on the line to save her. He takes the 5 missiles to the back, you know, and that means he's facing Orihime. So when he looks up at her and she sees him wearing the mask, you could almost see her like recoil in fear, like, who is this man? What have you done to yourself? And you can't really see his face, but you could see the hurt in his eyes as he like tries to get back to the fight, get some separation between the two of them. But she spends a lot of her time being worried, and I can understand that. Um, Things start to get bad for him at that point because he's getting beat up. And I know for him, it's a culmination of all the things that he had worried about. He didn't want people to know about his inner hollow. He fears that he can't control it. He feels like people are going to think that he's a monster. And it's all happening now, you know. Um, in Orahime's case, I doubt that she is actually afraid of him. She's just taken by surprise. Um, it's shocking and unsettling, but she knows that it's him, you know. But it's Nell that puts a stop to it. Like, yo, he's getting beat up and he's here to save you. The least you could do is show some, appreciation, a push. Let him know you're in his corner because he's getting his ass kicked. And it wasn't like that before. Well, that's all that Orihime needs because she starts yelling about, you don't have to try so hard. You don't have to win. Just don't get hurt anymore. I can't take it anymore if you get hurt anymore. And at this point, that's probably true because, like, I've had to bring him back from death like twice already. Like, how much more of this can you take? You know? Um, and, talk about giving your man the strength when he needs it, the strength to continue. Um, when he stopped Grimjow's next attack with his bare hand, the way I screamed, y'all should know that. And I live for that scene, by the way. He's like, listen, I gotta end this soon because I can't get hurt anymore. My girl asked me not to. It is what it is. And Grimjow takes a slash down the chest, and you think that that's it, but they go all out after that, and it's a battle between who's gonna last longest. And then of course Grimjow is like, I cannot stand you. And Ichigo is like, I know that you feel some type of way about being bested by just a human, but sometimes things are what they are. But in the end, he basically dismantles Grimjow, stabs him in the chest. The theme music is playing in the background, and it's everything you wanted in an epic moment. So yes, I go back and watch that fight probably several times a year, and I know why it took 4 episodes to complete, but it is epic either way. And that is all I have for my favorite Bleach moments as of right now. I'll probably come back with some more a bit later, but let me know y'all's favorite Bleach moments, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.